Welcome to the Accountants Exposed podcast, where we create light bulb moments for our listeners by exposing the journeys, secrets, and insights of some of the top players in accounting. This podcast is brought to you by Michael Edelstein, Director and Founder of Recruitment Expert, a specialist accounting recruitment agency working across Australia, New Zealand, and Asia Pacific. Today I'm excited to speak with Sarah Lawrance about her journey from being a cadet in regional New South Wales to a financial controller in her early 20s of movie companies in London, and then how she transitioned to her own CFO Advisory Firm, carving out a niche for herself in the creative and tech startup sector. It really goes to show how far your accounting career can take you. Since starting her own firm, she has grown in leaps and bounds and has taken home 2 consecutive CFO of the Year awards. Sarah was a wonderful guest on the podcast, and I'm really excited to share her journey with our audience. Please enjoy. Sarah Lawrance, welcome to the podcast. How have you been?
I've been really well, and thanks for having me.
Now, you've been actually recommended by one of the previous guests, Ali Garrett, and I think you mentioned to me in our conversation offline that you guys have a group. I think Andrew is in that as well, who's coming on a podcast next month.
Well, Andrew,
what's the name of that group?
It's the Rumble group, but Andrew Andrew actually set it up. So, and they've been, it's been pretty amazing this year. There's a lovely group of accountants that sit in that little group. So,
how did you guys come up with the name, and what do you guys all do and talk about? What's the essence of the group?
It is all Andrew. And I'm sure he will talk to you about it when he comes on this podcast, 100%. He'll probably give you far more information about it and why he started it and what he's hoping to achieve from it.
How big is it now?
I think it's only the 6 of us. 6 of us.
6 of you, okay. Very cool. So a good little support network, especially during COVID.
Honestly, I wouldn't have made it through it without those guys. It was such a lovely group to be a part of, especially when COVID hit back in March. So along with other groups outside of that, the CPA and other kind of groups that I have in play. But, yeah, they've been lifesavers.
Well, I guess, it goes to show how important it is to have a support group, especially during hard times and especially, I think, for small business owners. Getting an idea of how others do it and seeing how other people deal with situations that are similar to yours.
Yeah, 100%.
Invaluable. Okay. Now, you've been, I guess, in accounting for 17 years, I believe.
Oh, God.
No? I know, I shouldn't say.
Michael, that's a long time.
So tell me a bit more about, I guess, your journey from Wagga to an award-winning CFO in Bondi. Who runs, I guess, a bookkeeping / CFO advisory firm, right?
So I try to keep quiet the whole Wagga thing. But no, I was born in Wagga and then moved pretty quickly up onto the Central Coast. And that's where my first role was in audit, actually, SMSF audit, up on the Central Coast. And I had a phenomenal mentor up there. And, God, I think I was in there for 3 or 4 years, but I just knew that audit wasn't for me.
Were you doing audits just of SMSF?
Yeah.
Or did you get just? Wow, okay.
Yeah. And back
surprised
then,
you lasted that long.
Well, you know what? I had an amazing mentor who kind of, what I learned from her probably really laid the foundations for the rest of my career. So, she was the first woman on the CA cover. She was like, when you were going to conferences, she was probably one of the only women that was out there speaking. She was a real trailblazer and still is, quite rightfully in her own right. So, so I hung around in audit for probably a little bit too long. But that was 4 years. And at that stage, I probably had enough and looked at my career trajectory and kind of went, well, what's the most interesting industry that I can think of? And, at that age, I looked at TV and ended up at Film Australia. So Film Australia, I was a management accountant, a production accountant, and it was such a nice role because it was kind of that finance person that sat between the finance department and the production world.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting to kind of dip my toe into the creative pool and, not be the creative in the room, but be the finance person in the room supporting a group of creatives. So, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole process. I fell in love with, being able to support the creatives in such a way that, we get this beautiful story at the end of it, and me being able to say, I was a part of that. So I stayed there for a little bit, and then I ended up in London, where I worked in documentary as an FC. And again, for a lot of people that have worked outside of the Australian market, going into a much bigger market in a much bigger place, that just the level of money, the flow of funds, and just the opportunities that come around, being in an environment like that was just phenomenal. So like I said, it was just an amazing experience. And that's when I kind of started that journey of not just being the finance point person, but the operations point person, and then kind of sitting at the management table and going, okay, well, what are we doing and how can I contribute to strategy and whatnot? And so that's when it really kind of kicked off for me. And I just fell in love with the accounts department and the creative process. So
You were still young at that time, like as an FC.
I was way too young to be an FC at that age. I mean,
you were like in your 20s still?
yeah,
Early 20s, right?
yeah. No, 100%. And like they just took a chance on me, and I started as the production accountant and then ended up as the FC, and with that came all this opportunity. And, we're sitting down and we're looking at the flow of funds and international licensing across Europe and the US, and just invaluable experience that you just wouldn't get in a more structured financial role at that time. So, 100%. I was so young. But I was so confident, as we all are in our 20s, when we're like, of course I can do this. Of course I can manage all these funds and manage this role and be the finance point person. Of course I can.
Zero doubt.
But yeah, so for... Sorry?
I was like, that would have been a very exciting time in your life, being in London, new city, amazing role, interesting industry.
Yeah.
Sounds like a time of your life.
It was the time of my life. It's a very long time ago now. But that's why I'm always so, supportive of people, moving out of their comfort zone and kind of going into different markets and pushing their boundaries, because the growth that I had throughout that period was it was 10 to none. Like I wouldn't have got that kind of experience in Australia. I wouldn't have been exposed to the deals and the people and the level of management that I was over there. So I'm always like, push yourself out of your comfort zone, because you just never know what's going to happen. You never know where you're going to strike gold. So yeah, it was a great experience, and it was 4 years over in London. And then, like a lot of Aussies, I met an Aussie boy over in London, which brought me back to Australia.
I was going to say, what made you come back if you were having the time of your life?
A boy.
Yeah.
and a very short visa of his. So we ended up back in Australia. We ended up back in Sydney. He's from Melbourne. And then, I ended up at Southern Star working on High Five and Bananas in Pajamas, just doing some production accounting. I know, all the good ones. And then I ended up...
Did you cast yourself for any roles, No
way. Absolutely not. No way. I have always been more than comfortable in the accounts and finance department. Absolutely. So, but then, production accounting is a great role, and it's an exciting role because you get to go on set and you're part of the crew, and it's, you're part of that whole kind of creative journey. But it is also limiting in terms of, those, like, how are you kind of moving the business in a certain direction, and how are you kind of supporting it from a finance function. So I went out of that into an FC role into a production advertising company, and again, really fast growth company. They had pretty huge plans for expansion and dipping their toe in the technology arena. And again, just an amazing opportunity, because I got to not just, head up the finance vertical, but kind of also have a seat at the table. And with that comes opportunity around, what the discussions that are happening around strategy and expansion and diversification. So again, another another great experience. And I guess if I look back at all those roles, the ones that I've enjoyed the most have been, those fast growth, high growth companies where, a lot of moving parts.
And creatives.
Yeah, the creatives basically. So, but yeah.
I mean, it sounds like, you built and cemented your, I guess, FC skills in quite a few different environments and, 2 different countries. The last company you were in, I think it was Finch.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And you were there for quite a while, I believe 4
Yep.
years.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to eventually go out on your own?
I mean, for anyone that's worked in advertising, they know it's long hours.
Yeah.
It's long hours. It's a high pressure environment. It's a high performing environment as well. It's very different from documentary. In documentary, there's this nice kind of community feel where everyone's just pitching in and we're all doing each other favors and we're all taking pay cuts and we're doing this and that because we're all about the story. And then you kind of move from that world into advertising production, and it is a whole different ball game. There's huge amounts of money in there. It's really fast paced, and there's really short turnarounds. So whilst I learned a lot, like it just got to 4 years and I was like, I'm working long hours. I'm working long hours, and I felt like I'd done everything I could have achieved at that level. And I just thought, look, there's a real opportunity here. There's a real opportunity, to venture out into public practice where that space between what a traditional bookkeeper and then what a traditional public practitioner does, and how can I use the skill set that I've learned in my finance career, and how can I then repurpose that for the SME market? Because, I never felt like, I just felt like there was a bit of a gap in the market.
Okay, so that was the main impetus. A, you saw an opportunity there, there's a gap there, and B, you're just tired of doing the crazy hours.
Well,
and you've done plus you've done everything like that you could have.
But also I always wanted to start my own business. Like I always knew I wanted to start my own
That's
thing.
what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Has there always been a little entrepreneurial spark there?
No, absolutely. And I think you just get to the point where you're like, well, it's now or never. Like why not try now? Like I've got myself to a level and of experience and technical ability. If I'm going to do it, besides going back into a bigger company, now's probably the right time to do it as well. So.
And you started on your own?
Yes, started on my own. I was really lucky that I already had clients when I kind of started because I was well known in the creative space. So I had a lot of production companies that had already kind of said, yep, we're happy to jump over and work with you and we know what you could do. So that was really exciting that I wasn't starting from scratch.
And that was bookkeeping, or was that straight into CFO advisory when you started?
It was everything. So it was like bookkeeping, management accounting, and then the CFO advisory at the top end. So I think because I already had those connections, I already knew. I think for me at Hot Toast, it was like the lead generator always was the lead generator was always the bookkeeping, but then it's very easy to then kind of start that CFO conversation around. Okay,
what was it like? What was it like to go from like high level, as you said before, one of the things you enjoy was the strategy, the board level, the fast moving part, to then going to doing the grunt work, bookkeeping.
It was a change, and I think it's something I always say to people that are looking to venture out themselves as well. Like, I meet a lot of people that have moved straight into the CFO space and they only do CFO work, and sometimes they struggle a little bit to kind of get the clients through the door and they struggle a little bit to find the work. But look, for me, it just made sense because I wanted to try and support business in a way that it was like an outsourced finance function. So the same level of quality and experience that you would get in a much larger firm. And bookkeeping is part of that, at the entry level, like that bookkeeping becomes that foundation. And then if you get the bookkeeping right, then you get the clean data, then it makes your life easier when you're doing CFO work with people because it's that whole like rubbish in, rubbish out kind of analogy. So, it was interesting. It was definitely an adjustment. I think it's also an adjustment chasing clients when you come out of that CFO space as well. Like I think a lot of people think, I'm really, really good at my job. It's just going to translate to next week that I'm going to have this booming company. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit for people to get their head around that, but and understand that process. But yeah, it's all worked out.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, what do you advise, like, for a practitioner that goes out on their own? And look, I think many people in the accounting industry, I guess, are to the degree blessed with the fact that they do have a following when they do go out on their own because they've been in the service industry for a long time. But at the same time, yeah, like you can't rely on a couple of clients to have a proper business and to pay off your mortgage. So either from your own experience in terms of business development or from others, like what is the best way to build a business when you've gone out on your own and
Uh,
beyond those couple of clients that follow you?
yeah, and it's a really good question. And I always say to people, like, there's many different ways to get to the same place, but the way that I've done it is that I use, like, in those early days, like, I use bookkeeping as my lead generator. So just like a public practitioner that kind of specializes in the tax realm uses their tax returns and then upsells people into their advisory service, like, the bookkeeping becomes the foundation of that. So we're still really selective about the clients that we bring on board. So we don't really bring on board anybody that's under like $500,000, $1 million, because
Mm-hmm.
our sweet spot is at that higher end where we can kind of push into that CFO advisory space. But for us, I would say, maybe look at the bookkeeping element, and then you can outsource. You can outsource that in Australia. You can outsource that overseas, and then upskill from there. And also, like I said, you've got the advantage of clean data. If you're managing that entire finance function, then you know exactly what's coming to you at the other end when you're sitting there with the management team.
But then even if you've got the bookkeeping firm, it's still a competitive world. How do you promote it? How do you get clients for bookkeeping?
So I get my face out there. So for me, like, it's always been about going to industry events, networking events. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
specialize predominantly in the creative industries. So startup industry, startup companies. So I go to a lot of events. I'm doing a lot of webinars that are not just inside the accounting space. And then I've upped my social media game this year. So getting my face out, trying to attract SMEs via my technical knowledge.
Yep.
So it's just about getting out there and also trialing things. And if things don't work, that's okay. Not everything's going to work, but then just trying something else and trying a different approach and seeing if you could, we just sent wine out to like every single agency in Sydney, in the Surrey Hills area in the last couple of weeks. So we're always,
Send out an email or a flyer or what?
no, wine. So like
A
bespoke,
wine. Okay.
yeah,
Got you.
just nice little bespoke custom things that, like, hi, we're Hot Toast. It's been a really shitty year. We hope you're doing okay. Let us know if we can talk to you in 2021. So we're always trying to think of ways that we can do things a little bit differently from other practices, and we can kind of reach people and kind of garner their interest and see if we can form a relationship from there.
And you tried traditional ones as well, like SEO and Facebook
Yeah,
marketing, Google Ads, and
yeah, we go for it.
flyers. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Well,
we absolutely do all of that. We've got a pretty big digital presence, because a lot of our clients are in that space. So I use my clients
yeah.
to help. So I
And
understand.
what's been and was the industry kind of webinar just getting your face out? That was that the most effective then, or what did you find was like the most effective marketing tool you used?
Probably giving away my value. So, like, little
Okay.
snippets of technical knowledge, and having people come back and then DM me and LinkedIn and being like, wow, that's amazing. Let's have a chat. That's actually been,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say that's been kind of our highest response rate.
Okay. And you said you've even set up a studio now
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
facilitate that process
Well, my
to get your
husband
okay.
has.
And that you said has helped you, like getting your face and name out there.
Yeah. It's just helped develop my content strategy. So I'm looking at 2021 at the moment, and it's like, what I'm working on at the moment is, what does the next 6 months look like for me? Like, for the business, like, where do we want to grow? Like, where do I want my focus to be? And then how do I kind of cultivate a content strategy around that? around that strategy. So, and, marketing's all about discipline, right? It's all about like making sure you're consistently in front of people. Like it's the worst thing you can do is put a whole heap of content out there, then turn around and go, oh, I've got a couple of clients in. Okay, well, I'm not going to do anything for a while, because then it's like that you have that whole peaks and troughs kind of cycle around you.
And as a business owner, it's hard. Like when you've got a whole day of working and dealing with actually servicing the clients and recruiting staff and managing staff and dealing with family issues, and then having to like think about at 8 or 9 o'clock, at night, going, oh, what am I putting up on my LinkedIn for the next 2 weeks? And, what am I putting out there in terms of blogs? It's hard. You can see why very few people do it consistently because it's a lot of discipline.
So this year I've been really disciplined. So this year I've gone, okay, every Thursday is my marketing day. Like it's non-negotiable. So
you block out the whole day.
Yeah, I block out the whole day because those excuses were coming up for me where I was like, oh, I'll do it next week and this will happen and whatnot. And then I just was like, you know what, like I just need to ring fence some time because, whatever you put into your marketing is what you're going to get out at the back end. So, and it might not happen straight away, but it's all about building your brand and building your personal brand and building the business brand. So every Thursday for me now is marketing day. No meetings, nothing else happens besides marketing.
Okay. Now you've got, I believe 6 staff now, right?
Yeah, we're about to have our 6th staff member coming on board.
What's the growth plan? Like what are you striving for in the next 3 years, 5 years? Like what's the plan?
Yeah.
Or the vision?
So the vision, so next year I want to have this has been a really good year, but next year I really want to give it another push. So we've got pretty high growth targets. And I'd like to see that kind of in the next 3 year, kind of that 30-40% up. But for me, it's also about making sure that there's that balance there. Like growth for growth's sake is fine, but I want to make sure that we're still giving a really valuable service to our clients, that they're still feeling loved, they feel still feeling like we're part of their team, they're still feeling like they can lean on us for that higher level strategic piece as well, which comes down to having good staff, and good staff in this industry is really hard to find unless you go to an amazing recruiter like yourself. But
I did not pay you to say that. Just letting everyone know that.
But yeah, I don't ever want it like we've always had like a premium product approach because that's how I've, come out of the agency space. Like I don't want to have huge amounts of clients where we have huge turnover and we become a bit of a chop shop. Like it's always been about selecting the right clients, making sure they come on board, feeling like they're part of the family and we can grow from there.
Growing with them.
Yeah. And I think it's like I said to you the other day when we were talking about, at a certain level with the CFO services, we tap out. If we've done our job properly, then we get to that $10, $15 million turnover stage and then they have to hire somebody in-house. So
do most of your clients, like before you got them on board, did they have an accounting team at all or a bookkeeper, an outsource, or what would be a typical client in terms of their finance capability?
It's totally different across the board. So we'll have people that do have in-house finance people that they've then let go of, and then we've come in more of a full-on function type way. They've had bookkeepers come in. They've had bookkeepers that have kind of left after that. But our sweet spot is coming in and doing that whole finance function.
Okay. And look, I guess you've told us about some of your highlights of your career. What are some of the lowlights or the biggest challenges you've had in your career or in your business?
So I think, as I was saying to you before, I think building a business is really exciting and I love it and I wouldn't change it for anything and I wouldn't go back to being employed by anyone else. But there's days where things definitely suck, they don't go your way. And I don't think that we talk about that enough. I think we all get on these podcasts and we're like, it's great and it's raining money and we've got great clients. But, that's just not how business works. You can have the best morning and then in the afternoon something really crap happens and you're like, and so it's that constant, pick yourself up, let's keep going. Do you know what I mean? turn a corner and let's kind of build from there. So, initially when we started out, it was nice to have clients that we kind of had on board straight away. But it is an adjustment. It is an adjustment going, okay, I've come from a place where I've been really good at what I do. How do I then actively go and build from here and engage new clients? So that was one of our challenges starting off. I think on just a more personal level as well, I think because I'm always go, 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 sometimes I miss years, and it's like I'm always forward focusing as opposed to going, you know what, you should sort of stop and have a think about everything you've achieved in the last 12 months and then start over and then kind of start the push again. I think I should do that a little bit more in my career. And I think a lot of us should do that a little bit more, to be honest. I think we don't appreciate, all the awards and all the recognition. Like, awards are great, but what awards really do is they say, you know what, you've just done a really good job. You've just done a really good job in the last decade, and we're being recognized for that. So, I think I'd slow down a little, a little bit if I look back on my career and I had to change anything.
And you have got we haven't actually spoken about it, but yeah, you've got, I think, 2019 and 2020 CFO of the Year.
I know.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I mean, you're right. Look, there's a lot of ups and downs in business on a daily basis. It's not like you're going to work and then you do your thing and you switch off. You never really switch off. I mean, how do you handle the ups and downs? And I guess, or what do you do for downtime to switch off?
I meditate.
Okay.
And a lot of exercise. So I play soccer. I am like a die-hard Coogee women's football player. So my outlet is on the soccer field with the girls, basically. So and it's non-negotiable. Like, it's always been a really good anchor for me. Like, I do a lot of Pilates. I do a lot of soccer. Like, for me, it's like, as long as I exercise at least once a day, then that provides that anchor for me and that kind of stress relief.
Okay. So soccer is what? I guess training once a week and then playing once a week?
Yeah, playing twice a week. So usually
twice a week. Okay.
Yeah, we're off now. We're in the off season, but then we'll start again at the start of January again.
Won any trophies or championships?
A few.
Okay.
We give it a good go.
And look, and the other thing I wanted to ask you is, as you said, it's a different skill set going from an employee to running your own business. One thing I find not many people talk about is, what do you consciously need to do, or even subconsciously, I don't know, for some people, but to grow into that role, like, the skills you need to get, the mentors you need to get, the tools you need to get. Like, not many people talk about the growth they need to undergo to become successful in business. So I was hoping you can comment on that.
So for me, I always know what I need to do in terms of, like, okay, I need to look at, like, staff, leadership, but my biggest issue has always been discipline. I have shiny ball syndrome. So in my business...
Me too, don't worry.
In my business, I'm the ideas girl. I'm like, oh my God, I see an opportunity here. I see an opportunity here. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Da, da, da. So for me, it's actually been more fundamental. It's been about going, okay, this is what we're looking at in the next shorter period, in the next couple of months, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, and then keeping on track. And it's all about discipline for me, because otherwise I get really sidetracked, and then you've got too many things in the air and your attention is kind of skewed, and it's kind of like nothing gets done. I mean, it's great being the ideas person, but at the end of the day, you've got to have people that execute for you, and you've got to be able to delegate. You've got to be able to have people that can actually get shit done as well. So, and that's something I had to learn in the last couple of years. Like, that process of slowing down, checking in with the team, checking with our milestones, making sure I was keeping on track, making sure the team was keeping on track. For me, that's been one of my biggest challenges, or one of my biggest growth focuses.
No, I think I could definitely relate to every single word you just said. Like I was like, oh, we could do this, let's do that, let's do that. And we're like, okay, we don't need like 20 more people to be able to
I
actually keep the business sustainable and do all that as well.
Exactly. Because like I get so excited about stuff. Like I get so excited, like something new will hit the market and I'm like, oh, and I've always been a big believer in looking outside your industry. So if there's something that you can repurpose from a different industry and bring it into your own, then I'm like, oh my God, we should look at doing that. We should do this and we should do, and then all of a sudden nothing's getting done.
Mm.
So,
What's been a good example of where you've done that from another industry and like looked at repurposing something?
oh, oh God. Oh, there's so many, Michael. I don't even want to tell you. My brain, like, it's like at one stage, it's like, oh, let's do marketing from accountants, and let's partner up with one of my clients, and we're going to launch this and execute, and we're going to do this, and like all of a sudden, that's like one of 100 things, and it's like I get super excited about it. I'm like, okay, let's just
So
chill
how
out.
do you what have you, I guess, implemented or approaches that you've used to deal with that?
Oh, it's just discipline. So it's workflow management, and it's making sure that I have moments in my week and moments with the team where I become accountable as well, just like every other team
Hmm.
member. So it's 100% just for me. That's like some of the hardest things for me to do. But it's
Well,
just
I guess that's why people get like business coaches and mentors too, like because you do need to keep
mm,
yourself on track as well, eh?
100%, 100%. So, and I've got some really good people around me. Like, I think I'm sure everyone that comes on your podcast has got that version of for themselves where they've got like a good group of advisors or they've got good mentors. And you can never underestimate a good mentor, really, that you can kind of touch base with. And I've got a phenomenal one in Sydney, and he's gone and done exactly what I want to do, but he's just probably 7 years down the track. So, just
Mm.
finding those people where you go, where do I want to be in 10 years' time? How do I find those people, and then how can I lean on them so that I can access as much knowledge and they can keep me accountable as well and on the path.
Okay. I mean, look, it's the second time you brought up the fact that you have had great mentors.
Mm.
Just wanted to a little deep dive into that. Um, One is what makes a mentor great? Like, how do you know you've got a great mentor? How can you be a great mentor to someone else?
So I think when you're younger, for me, I don't think I didn't know any better. She was my first boss. So
Mm.
I just thought that this is what all bosses were like, like I thought her taking me to industry events at, 18 years old, and her, pushing me to go educate myself outside of the CPA or whatever that looked like, and her pushing me to extend my skill set in this area. I just thought that was fairly normal. So it wasn't until after that, when I got into other roles, that I was like, oh wow, like she actually did really lay the groundwork and the framework. So, and I can definitely look back at the skill set that I learnt from her and go, it's held me in such good stead. Like she was always that person that was like, I'm just going to say yes to it and I'm just going to do it. And
Mm.
she encouraged that in me as well. So, to a certain extent, I've always done that in my career. It's like, just say yes, just say yes, and
The
figure it
Yes
out
Man movie.
later.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I have. I have. But
I
just
love that
say
movie.
yes, and it just comes back to that whole put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Um,
Mm.
but I think as you get older, I think you become quite specific. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of people that say they can guide you and push you in the right direction and get you where you want to go. But I think for me, what's worked well is finding like-minded people with the same kind of attitude towards business, that run the same kind of quality high-end firms, and that have kind of walked down the path before me, and I can tap into their knowledge, and I can go, shit, I've got this situation. How did you deal with it? What are you thinking? So I think you become a little bit more strategic the older you get. And I think it's based on looking at, well, what kind of firm do I want to look like? What kind of people in the industry do I want to be guided by? And so it's a bit more strategic, I think, at this age and this
Did
level of my career.
you mentioned the person you've got now, for example? Is it someone that you went out and you researched and you reached out to yourself, or was this an
No,
introduction? Or
No, he reached out to me actually. We were up for the same award, an awards entry, and we ended up just doing a coffee. And then we just realized, like I'm really big on trying to give back to people in the industry, and he was quite like-minded like that as well. And we were just talking about, where our firms were at that time and how far down the path he was compared to me. And it's just about relationships. We just clicked, and we just ended up, I just basically lent on him since then. And it's just been he's just been so open, and he's been, these are the challenges that we've had. This is how you should look at them, and this is how you should deal with them. And I just bounce stuff off him, which has been really good. But in turn, I always try to do that for other people if I can as well. I know it sounds so cliche, but like I really do feel like when we knowledge share and when we help each other out, especially in this industry, it just raises the bar across the board. Do you know what I mean? So whether that's with the CPA and I'm helping the younger guys in there, or with younger accountants, I'm always more than like, how can I share my knowledge with you? How can I make sure that you're in the best position possible? And if you want to, do it bigger and better than what I do, then good stuff. That's a win. Like it's a huge industry, it's a huge market. Like, go for gold. Like, if I can help you, I can help you.
I mean, if you were giving advice to someone that's young in the industry, they're a young aspiring accountant in practice or in commerce, what would you advise them as the best approach to find a good mentor?
Oh, I've been asked this before, and I think it's a really difficult one. No, it's a really difficult one because some of it is luck and relationships. Do you know what I mean? And getting out there and talking to people and finding like-minded people. I think that's the first step, is to kind of put yourself out there and meet as many people as you possibly can across all different areas. Your mentor doesn't necessarily have to come, it could be a finance person that's moved up the commercial and then they've kind of skipped across to another part of the business, or whatever that is. So I would say get yourself out there, try to meet as many people as possible. It's an interesting one. I know there's a lot of structured mentor programs now that are happening. I think Brad Ainsworth, I know he does one. CPA do a really structured one. I'm sure the CA does one as well. So I would also say tap into your associations. They're desperate to kind of re-engage members, especially at that younger level at the moment. So they're trying to kind of launch these kind of programs where they give the most value for younger members. So if that's something that you can do, I would definitely say tap into that, because they're also pulling from mentors across like a whole range of industries. So I would just say get out there, start asking questions, start being curious, and make sure you land on somebody that has the same values and the same life view that you do, and then go for gold.
What about if you're more senior? What if you're at the higher level in your career? You are an FC already, you are a partner, but you want to, like an athlete, you want to keep pushing yourself to get to a higher peak.
Yeah, I would go to the industry, which is what I
as
do.
Well.
Yeah, I would go straight to industry. So, I'm so lucky to be a part of Andrew's Rumble crew. Like, all the people in that group are just phenomenal. Like, their experience and their wealth of knowledge is amazing. And then just get out there. It's exactly the same advice that I would give anyone younger. Like, go and find like-minded people and then tap into their experience and their knowledge,
Okay, good advice. One thing I want to ask you is, like, from the research I've done, there's not too many female-run CFO advisory practices in Australia. And I was just wondering, like, has it been... Well, do you feel it's been a different journey for you as a female in the accounting industry compared to, say, if you're a male, either in the CFO space or as a FC in the creative space? Whether you can speak to that a bit.
I can, but it could take a while, Michael. And I don't really know if you want my ramblings on this either. But look, I think there's bias towards men in this part of the industry. 100% yes. I think, has it been challenging at times? Yes. Have I walked into boardrooms at times where it's expected that I'm the one that gets the drinks and I'm the one that, yes. I mean, that is what has happened at points in my time in my career. Have I been talked over? Has somebody said exactly the same thing that I've said a week later and it was my suggestion? Yes, when I've been in agency and production. But, unfortunately, and I think it's changing a lot now, but you just have to keep going. You just have to keep putting your hand up and you have to keep pushing yourself and you have to keep having a seat at the table, and hopefully the next generation and the next generation, there'll be a lot more female CFOs sitting out there that are running their own firms because other people have gone and done it first. So, I mean, I don't know too many CFO female-run firms, to be honest, out there in the Australian market. If any of them are listening, I'd love to connect with you. Maybe we should have a group.
No, I mean, look, I've heard similar things from Ali, for example, as well. Have there been? Well, I'll ask another question. Have there been any advantages of having gone through this journey as a female? Then,
I have a really tight knit group of clients that are all new mums, that are amazing women. Lady startups that I've definitely been able to kind of galvanize that space in the CFO space. So there's been that advantage of that. But I think, like my whole team is female. And I always say to them, like, there's no reason, with all respect to men, there's no reason that we should need to run a company like a man potentially would run a company in 2020. Like, why do we have to look at it like that? Why can't we look at it differently? Why can't we give that work-life balance? Why can't we do things differently and introduce different things into the business that maybe you guys haven't seen before? So I'm a lot more relaxed in that way when I manage my team as well, which I think has been a real benefit, because what that's meant is that I get a lot of new mums that work at Hot Toast, absolute phenomenal women that have come out of, banking and top four, that don't want to go back into that environment. So that's been an absolute advantage, because we've been able to offer them, anywhere in Australia, we've been able to offer them that kind of balance that they wouldn't get in those bigger institutions. And Hot Toast becomes the winner in that. We get their technical knowledge and their experience and they're lovely people to boot. So yeah, it's slightly different. But you're right, I think the advantages is to look at the opportunities and to look at what you can gain from sitting on that side of the table.
And your business is remote? Like most of your staff can work remotely? Yeah.
Remote and distributed. So we've got a couple in different parts of Sydney, Adelaide, and Western Australia.
Okay. And do you outsource at all?
No.
No. Okay. Is that a conscious?
Yes, it was a conscious decision. We were outsourcing to the Philippines, and then we decided to bring that back in-house. It just wasn't the right fit for us. I think because we're taking a slightly different approach to client management and company management. It wasn't the right approach for us.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Because I know it's a big trend over the last quite a few, 5-10 years now.
Yeah, and it is a big trend, and it's one that we jumped into based on where the industry was heading and the fact that everyone was outsourcing, offshoring. And then we just decided for client management, the fact that we have far more touch points with our clients, quality control, we just made the decision that we wanted to bring it in-house, and we wanted to basically bring on juniors in Australia that we can then build up to the next level. So I always want the team to be kind of moving up through the ranks. So yeah, it was a personal choice, and it was one based on customer service.
And I think based on your business model of using the bookkeeping as your lead gen that leads into offering that service, I think it makes sense in your particular circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of bookkeepers and a lot of accountants do outsource, and it works for them, and they have phenomenal growth rates. But for us, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, it was our lead generator, and so we were doing, it just wasn't right for us, and we decided, and we were a lot happier for bringing it back into the Australian market now. And we've also got that career trajectory for other younger employees, they know where they're headed. They know that, where their next, 1, 2, 3 years looks like.
Okay. Speaking of employees, and you said female only, I think you told me in our conversation before this, trying to get your hubby into the business.
See, this is what happens when you start your own business. Because initially I was starting Hot Toast, and I wasn't going to build it out as a huge business. I was like, I'm just going to do CFO consulting, and we're just going to see how it goes. It's going to be super lean. It's going to be super, it's going to be about the consulting. And then we got some more bookkeeping clients on, and I did try to recruit my husband. That was a massive fail.
Tell us more about that.
For anybody that's trying to recruit their spouse that works in the trades, in particular the electrical business, trying to then get them to sit down for 6 to 8 hours a day at a computer doesn't work. Doesn't work at all.
For everyone. Well, no, electrician.
I know he is an electrician, but we had these great vision of it's just going to be the two of us, and we're going to go live in Byron for 6 months, and then we're going to live overseas for 6 months, and it's just going to be fantastic. And you can just do a bit of the bookkeeping, and I'll do the CFO stuff. And it didn't.
You had it all planned out in your head.
We did. It didn't happen. We doubled back on that and decided to send him back to the work site. It was better for everybody on the home front for him to go back to the work site. But you know what? Trial and error, my friend. This is what starting a business is all about. It's all about learning the lessons and going, you know what? That didn't work. Let's just try the next thing.
And the favorite word in business, pivot, right?
Especially in 2020. I think it's the most used word ever. Let's pivot. So, but you know what? I know a lot of creatives that met their partners in the creative industry, and they have very successful businesses, probably because they came from the same working world. But, the trades and CFO and creatives, no good. If you're thinking about doing it out there, don't do it.
Fair enough. Speaking of, I guess, 2020, well, there's two questions. They say hindsight is 2020. What would you have done differently in your career or your business?
This year?
Either in the last 17 years of your sort of career trajectory or in business?
I probably would have started Hot Toast a little sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's so cliche to say because everybody says this, I wouldn't do anything differently because it's got me to where I am today. But it's
really, I would do a million things differently.
I wouldn't.
In hindsight.
No,
really?
I wouldn't. Nah. Because no way. Because as long as I've stayed true to myself and as long as I've gone every opportunity, especially ones that scare the shit out of me, are the ones that I've gone, I'm going to try it out. So as long as I can sit back in my career and look at the last 17 years and go, I pushed myself, that's always when the most amazing outcomes have come off the back of it. So I wouldn't do anything differently. Even with Hot Toast, it's been I had to go through learning the lessons to get to where I am today, and you only do that by, it can't be good all the time. You've got to, a lot of, especially big practices, if they go, oh, you should do this, Sarah, you should do that. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I'll go make the same mistake. And then I'm like, okay, now I know what you're talking about. But no, I wouldn't do anything differently. I wouldn't do absolutely anything differently. No.
Okay. I guess, as you said, yeah. No. It makes sense from your perspective as in terms of if you look at all the things you had to go through to become who you are, then you wouldn't change it if you're happy with who you are.
Yeah.
I guess I've looked at it as some of the shitty business decisions I've made or investment decisions I've made. I'm like, I would happily take any of them back.
Oh, really?
If I had because they would just lead to much better outcomes had I known otherwise in hindsight. So but from that perspective.
I think I would have been sad. I think I would have missed an opportunity if I didn't go live in London. I think I would have missed an opportunity if I didn't put my hand up for the talks and the workshops and everything else that I've put my hand up for. But I mean, that's how I've always lived my career. Just do the things that scare the shit out of you, and usually 50-50. It kind of comes up okay, you know. So
I love the motto for the episode. Do the things that scare the shit out of you.
I know. Sorry, accountants. It's a Central Coast girl in me coming out.
I love it. I'm a big fan of that as well. Well, look, as someone that's done SMSF or audit, I guess, bookkeeping, commerce, CFO stuff,
Mhm,
um, and you did it as part of a cadetship while you were still at uni,
mhm.
what would you advise like young graduates coming out of a degree, trying to figure out which direction to take in their accounting career? Should they go into audit? Should they go into tax? Should they go into commerce or government or SMSF for that matter?
Michael, this is a hard question because I talked about this with you the other day. So, what I was telling you is that I was just on a panel with a whole bunch of like fully flexed up CFOs in the Singapore Asia region. And I got off the panel, and half of them had come from audit backgrounds, which totally amazed me because I was like, really? Like, I thought a lot of them would have gone up through commerce, gone up through that vertical, and worked their way up through the accounts department. So the more I go out to talk to people, the more that I see actually like a good foundation in audit. I'm not saying you have to go into audit, but I'm just saying that sometimes those roles that you go into in your earlier careers that you think, where is this going to? I don't understand what I'm doing. Like, gain as much technical knowledge as you can in that space, whether it's from an audit background or tax or compliance, and then push yourself out of there. That's what I did. And that's, what a lot of other people as well that I've talked to in the CFO space have done as well. So, yeah, and it's held me in really good stead, that kind of 4 years foundation, kind of technical knowledge that I built up in the audit world.
Hmm. Look, I can relate to it. I started my career as a cadet in audit as well, and I thought it was
Oh,
amazing experience. Because
still
look,
the best
where
one.
else? Well, I'm just like, when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid out of high school, like where else in the world or any other job can you put on a suit and go and talk to CFOs and CEOs all day about their risks and issues in their business and really grasp business from that bird's eye view at such a young age and gain that confidence? You know, I can't think of any other kind of opportunity besides that. So I've always been a big proponent of audit
Yeah.
as a good grounding tool. But as everything, yeah, it depends on what firm you get into, depends what team you get into. Like I was lucky where I had, and you were as well, because you started in a good sized firm, but in Central Coast, which is essentially a small firm based in Sydney
Oh,
standards.
tiny firm.
Exactly.
Like,
So you get a good overview, you get exposure to things, and that's where I find like that's advice I give to the young people. Is like you need that you need to be in a place where you get a lot of exposure versus being put in a bank audit for like Westpac or a BHP audit, and you're just doing expenses for the next 3 years, and that's all
yeah,
you learn.
100%.
You
You
would
don't want to become
hate audit.
Yeah, you don't want to become a cog in the wheel. But, it's such a balance as well because, like, you then get the rep of going into a big company, but then you also don't want to jump around too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to have the benefit of kind of settling into a role and kind of gaining the experience. And, sometimes it's a bit of luck, in terms of the managers that you work underneath and the people that inspire you and the people that teach you that knowledge. So, and sometimes it is a bit of luck. And if you jump, I always say jump quickly. Don't jump after 3 to 6 months. Like, if it's not for you, get out of there and find something else.
Hmm. One thing I wanted to ask you was as well, like I know you've been a big proponent of tax practitioners offering CFO services. You said you've been drumming on about that for the last 12 months
I
in
have.
particular.
People are sick of
What?
hearing about it from me.
Yeah. Well, hey, in a way, you're kind of creating more competition for yourself. So, why are you a big proponent of that?
Yes and no. Yes, but at the same time, I think when you look at more conservative public practices, they've got these huge tax base, right? They've got this huge base
Hmm.
of clients. And CFO services, if you engage that base of clients for CFO services, it just becomes a natural extension of the tax advisory work that you're doing just in the more commercial field, right? So I just think there's opportunity for people, it just goes back to that whole that community over competition. There's enough work for all of us. I've I've got my vertical clear, I've got my specialization clear. But, there is an opportunity for public practitioners that have been told for years and years, get into advisory, scale up into advisory, but don't actually know then how to execute that. And I think CFO services becomes a nice little easy soft landing into that space, because it's already using the skill sets that they have, that technical skill set they have. It's just maybe reframing the client relationship in a different way. So it's like, okay, well, now I need to get more, involved in the strategy piece or the business planning piece. So, and I think everyone becomes a winner. Do you know what I mean? I think the client becomes a winner because they're getting those value add services, and ultimately they're achieving what they want, which is growth or whatever strategy they have in play. And the public practitioners become a winner because, they're, upselling them and the fees and whatnot. So, no, it just comes down to a really fundamental level of I just see opportunity for public practitioners, and I want as many of them to try and push into this space as possible, because it lifts the bar in the industry. We have so many consultants that come in and eat our lunch, and so many that don't have financial backgrounds, that kind of galvanize that a big portion of those client bases. And, and I know a lot of practitioners are frustrated, and they kind of look at that and they go, well, hang on a second, I could do that as well. I just haven't engaged the client in a way where I can start that conversation and then help them build from there. So, I just think it raises the bar. If we can get more technical, if we can add more value as an industry, it is a better outcome for the industry and all practitioners.
Yeah, slightly different skill set. Like I'm just thinking of a typical practitioner with, say, 15, 20 years experience doing tax returns and financials, to go into a more strategic offering when they're like, well, I don't really, like, I know the numbers of the business, but I don't really know the landscape of that industry. Like you do, because you've been in the industry and that's your niche. But like a typical practitioner might have a multitude of different clients in different industries in different sizes. For them to start advising on strategy and business planning, isn't that a slightly different skill set? And then if so, how do you bridge that gap then for them?
100% it is. And so I always say to people, either find yourself a champion in the business that has a variation of that skill set that you can then build up on their technical knowledge, or bring somebody in from a commercial background. Like there is a lot of phenomenal CFOs out there that have done their time in large corporates, in public listed companies, that are now looking for a different space where something that they can own, something that they can be involved in, and bring them into your firm and build out your CFL vertical that way, and have them be the driving force behind that. So there's a couple of different ways to do it, but there's just so much benefit in doing it as well. And then the whole firm benefits. If you bring a commercial CFO, I mean, you talk to them all day, Michael, like you bring that kind of skill set into the business and you build out a vertical like that, like, that's just opportunity, and you've already got the client base sitting there, that they're just, and I know that a lot of clients are asking for it, because that's where we've seen the growth. This year in particular with COVID, our CFO services have just, people like, how can you help us more? What else can we do? Like, what else can you do for us? You know what I mean? So, I mean, don't be afraid to look outside the realm and build the vertical from there. Poach somebody from a commercial background.
Makes sense. Okay. So it's not necessarily the practitioner himself having to do it. It's also just the ability to offer that service to their clients internally. Okay. Makes sense. Look, last question, because I know we're running out of time. I guess, look, I don't know, 2020 or just even most recently, is there anything that you've purchased? I don't know, a book, a tool, either your tech stack or anything that you absolutely love?
No, because I knew you were going to ask me something like this, because this is the time that I am looking for books. I was actually going to post on a Facebook forum yesterday saying, what's everyone reading for Christmas? Because like I'm ready to like put down everything and like actually, kind of ingest.
Chill.
Chill. And I was like, I bet Michael's going to ask me about a book that I'm going to read, and I haven't got it yet. When I do, I will post about it, Michael. But
Well, has there been anything that's had a dramatic impact on you? Like anything you've read or seen, or a tool, either a tech stack tool or something you bought in your personal life that's had the most tremendous impact on you?
Well, no. I mean, my tremendous impact is I picked up my meditation this year again. So if anybody out there is feeling, I've had a focus on my mental health. So, and for me, meditating on a daily basis, doing transcendental meditation has actually kept me sane this year. I would suggest anyone that has had as hectic a year as I have that they potentially look at meditating.
Okay.
That's probably
So the biggest tool has been TM, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's one of those things that when things are going well, meditation always seems to get pushed to the side.
Yeah.
But everybody knows how good it is for them. It's so discipline people, discipline.
It's an easy word to spray around, but very hard to actually to do.
So very true.
Sarah, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Michael.
Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye. Thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like our podcast and share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever it is you hang out so more people can benefit from these speakers. Also, please subscribe on our website so you get all of our latest episodes. And if there's anything else I can help you with, or you have speakers you'd love to hear from, or some feedback about the current episode, please feel free to send an email to michael@recruitmentexpert.com.au. Until then, take care, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.